What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to this prediction video. Now, this weekend we have the semi-finals of the English FA Cup, and while Manchester United will probably be the favorites in their tie, I think this one will be a lot more even. So for this prediction video, join me as we cover the Emirates FA Cup semi-final taking place at Wembley on the 20th of April. That is this week Saturday, as Manchester City go head-to-head with Chelsea. Now, City and Chelsea last went head-to-head at the Etihad on the 17th of February, so it wasn't too long ago. The City is still on their title chasing charge, I would say, while Chelsea, on the other hand, struggling to put some sort of campaign together to just salvage a European spot. But it was in fact the away side, Chelsea, who found the back of the net in the 42nd minute through some quick counterplay that just found Raheem Sterling open one-on-one with the keeper, and Sterling is not going to make any mistakes from there, as most Manchester City fans know, and it's 1-0 to Chelsea. And the match kind of stayed that way for large periods until in the 83rd minute, Rodri somehow managed to get on the end of a save or a fumbled save from the keeper and blasted the ball into the top of the net to make it 1-1. And that's how the match ended at the Etihad, 1-1 between Manchester City and Chelsea. Chelsea super grateful to have been able to pick up a point at the Etihad, while Manchester City probably left scratching their heads, wondering how it was they came undone against a team that was low on morale, low on confidence, and just lacked overall chemistry. We start off our team analysis with Manchester City. Now, the last 5 fixtures for the Citizens have ended in 3 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss. Their last match was a disappointing loss against Real Madrid in the Champions League, the match ending 1-1 after extra time, and then the Citizens crashed out 4-3 on penalties. In their last 5 games, Manchester City have scored an impressive 17 goals, that is more than 3 goals a game, and have conceded 8 goals, which is close to 2 goals a game. So they're getting goal output, but they're also shipping quite a few at the back as well. Standout play, the first one we've got to cover for Manchester City has got to be Erling Haaland with 31 goals and 6 assists. Haaland was a no-show in both of those games against Real Madrid, the one at the Bernabeu in Spain and the other one at the Etihad in Manchester. He really needs to bounce back, especially considering in the match between those two against Luton, he did actually score. So Haaland is kind of looking like a bully right now, a player who can only score or get some sort of goal contribution against smaller teams. And he really needs to change that idea around him right now. Next up, I want to look at Phil Foden. With 22 goals and 10 assists, I think personally Phil Foden was the standout player for Manchester City in the first leg against Real Madrid in Spain. Foden, I think, brings so much to this Manchester City team. Usually City just pass the ball around, moving it, trying to create openings. But I think Foden is the kind of player who isn't afraid to run at the opposition with the ball at his feet and go and take an active approach to creating those openings and those opportunities. And I think Foden is very integral to what Guardiola is trying to achieve at Manchester City. Next up, I want to talk Guardiola. Now, with 2 goals and 2 assists, Guardiola is obviously not going to be spoken about much for his goal scoring, but he has scored in back-to-back matches before this one at the Etihad. He scored against Luton and he scored against Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, and they were both great goals. But I think right now, I see Guardiola going forward a little too much. I think he needs to stay back a bit. I think he needs to cover his defensive duties. Yes, it's good to give Manchester City more options when it comes to passing up front, but I think Manchester City have been caught on the counter way too easily. And against Chelsea as well, in that match in February, I think if the centre-backs were a little bit more alert, players like Raheem Sterling would not have found themselves in the open space that they were able to find themselves in. Next up, we look at Chelsea. Now, the last 5 fixtures for the Blues have ended in 3 wins and 2 draws. Their last match was a 6-0 win at Stamford Bridge against Everton. Now, I think that match kind of turned into an exhibition match for someone like Cole Palmer, where he just went out and showed just how phenomenally talented he is. But it was also disastrous for Everton goalkeeper Jordan Pickford, who made multiple mistakes in the build-up to those goals. I think also it's worth noting that in those last 5 games, Chelsea have scored 18 goals. That is more than Manchester City. but they've also conceded 9, which is also more than Manchester City. I think the standout player for Chelsea has got to be former Manchester City winger Cole Palmer with 23 goals and 13 assists. Cole Palmer is actually tied with Erling Haaland right now for the Premier League Golden Boot. Palmer, I think, has found himself in a Chelsea squad that has very little identity, trying to find itself. And I think Pochettino was very intelligent in making Cole Palmer both his designated penalty taker and the focal point of their attacks. It's given Cole Palmer so much more freedom, so much more opportunity to just stamp his own identity on the game. Next up, I want to talk Nicholas Jackson with 13 goals and 5 assists. Jackson is the centre forward right now at Chelsea. I think Chelsea brought in Nkunku expecting him to fill that role, but he was injured and he's still injured, and that's given Jackson the opportunity to stake his claim or put his name in the hat for that opportunity as well. But it's been difficult for Jackson. He's had matches where he scored multiple goals and then he's gone for long periods without scoring or contributing to any attacking plays in any way. So I think Jackson as well needs to find some kind of consistency in his game if he wants to be the designated number 9 at Chelsea. And finally, I want to talk Conor Gallagher with 5 goals and 8 assists. Before the arrival of players like Cole Palmer and Nicholas Jackson, I think a lot of pressure was put on a player like Conor Gallagher. Gallagher's the kind of player who can, I wouldn't say dictate play, but he can set alarm bells ringing amongst the opposition defenders with his movement, his passing ability, his range, and just his overall intelligence when it comes to reading the game. Okay, on to the head-to-head in the S3M2 Verdict. Now, the last 5 fixtures between these two sides have ended in 3 wins for Manchester City and 2 draws, so it's not looking great for Chelsea. City have scored 11 against the Blues, while Chelsea have managed to score just 5 against City. Manchester City really went out and disappointed everybody in the Champions League. I watched the game. It was very disheartening to see how City move the ball, but without much purpose. They give it to a player like Erling Haaland, who just doesn't really do much on the ball except score goals. So if you give it to him and he's marked out, or if there's too many players around him, he doesn't really function and he doesn't really do much. And that's why there's this stigma around Erling Haaland right now that he goes missing in the big games. Manchester City went for large periods of the game as well without really doing anything to threaten Real Madrid's goal. They just moved the ball up and down, side to side, looking for holes, but there was nobody really taking players on. After Kevin De Bruyne got the equalizer, then it looked like he was prepared to take shots, but it looked like everybody else just wasn't. And there were so many times where City were in Real Madrid's box, could have gotten goals, could have at least taken a shot on target, and they just didn't. Penalties seem to be a massive issue for Manchester City. They were undone against Arsenal in the Community Shield, and they've been undone against Real Madrid in the Champions League. If this one goes to penalties, I think Pep Guardiola may have an issue on his hands as well. Another curious thing to note is that City have failed to keep a clean sheet in their last 5, so they've been shipping goals. Defensively, they're not looking very solid, and they've been able to compensate for that with their incredible goal output, but Real Madrid proved that if you can hit City early and just sort of contain them and frustrate them, they become too patient. They go for 60 to 70 minutes, probing, looking for holes, trying to penetrate opposition defenses, and if they can't, they just resort to long shots, or they resort to just moving the ball around aimlessly. And that's what Real Madrid did to Manchester City. And ironically, a team like Chelsea could do exactly the same thing. Chelsea has a front line of players who are young and pacey and have that bravery and that ambition to take on opposition defenders. And I've noticed that Manchester City's defenders, when put under pressure, tend to make silly mistakes. This could lead to Chelsea being awarded things like penalties, free kicks, maybe even City defenders getting booked or even sent off unnecessarily. However, Chelsea has problems of their own right now. While that match against Everton might have been the Cole Palmer exhibition where he got a hat-trick and just looked overall unplayable on the day, there seems to be this kind of infighting in the squad. Chelsea were awarded a penalty, and as we all know, Cole Palmer is in fact Chelsea's designated penalty taker, but for some reason Nicholas Jackson, and I think it was Madueke, decided to argue over who gets to take the penalty. And it kind of looked as though there's a bit of disunity and a bit of friction between the players. Pochettino was very quick to go out and extinguish that flame in the press conferences and just say that these kinds of things cannot happen again, and it is a sign of immaturity. But I think also it's very important that he has sort of drawn awareness to the fact that his players are still young. By using the word immature, I don't think it's an insult. I think it is in fact just highlighting the fact that his players are still young. They still have a bit of growing up to do. But I think this match is going to be kind of like a clash of ideologies. Right now, with Manchester City, they prioritize form. Can we break you down? Can we make it look pretty? Can we sort of hurt you emotionally and psychologically by showing you just how fragile your defense is by picking holes in you at will? Whereas with Chelsea, they don't care. It's just about getting the ball at the back of the net, and that's what they do. So it's more about function at Chelsea, and I think that's why this clash of form versus function will play a very big role in this fixture. Right now, Manchester City were coming into this one as treble contenders, in fact back-to-back treble contenders. This loss against Real Madrid probably does give them quite a bit of a confidence knock, but I do think Guardiola's going to prioritize the Premier League over the FA Cup right now. I don't think that means he's going to field a second string squad. I think what it does mean is that while I do expect Haaland to get an opportunity to maybe salvage a bit of pride, I am also quite confident that Julian Alvarez will play a bigger role in this one. I think City definitely come into this one as massive favorites. They came into the match against Real Madrid as massive favorites, and all I have to say is
I am shocked! Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
But at the end of the day, the quality at Chelsea is not the same as the quality at Real Madrid. That's not to say that Chelsea cannot get a result here. I think if Chelsea play on the counter-attack, they can really hurt Manchester City. I think injuries do play a role as well. For Chelsea, the highlight injury has got to be Enzo Fernandez, so their midfield is going to look a little bit more disjointed, maybe a little distracted, might struggle to deal with City's domination of the ball. But with City, on the other hand, having to play extra time against Real Madrid, you gotta just know that they are feeling tired, they're feeling fatigued, to the extent that Kevin De Bruyne and Erling Haaland actually asked to be substituted off in that match after extra time, because they did feel a bit of, I think, strain in their legs, or just overall fatigue. Chelsea, on the other hand, have had basically an entire week to rest. So their players will be fresh, they'll be fit, they'll be ready to go. City, on the other hand, I think we're going to see a drained Manchester City. And if you consider that Chelsea are going to play counter-attack, the City are going to have to do a lot of running on those counters. And I think that is going to make things very difficult. I think Manchester City, this inability to keep clean sheets will come back to bite them once again. This lethal counter-attacking ability that Chelsea have is really going to hurt Manchester City, I think. But I do think a scoreline of maybe 2-1, maybe 3-1 is warranted. I think Manchester City, on paper, should be able to clean this one out. But, once again, I just like to say that fatigue plays a role here. A very big role. Manchester City might be able to grind out results with a second string squad or a B team against the likes of Luton. But I don't think Chelsea will make it that easy. I don't think it'll be that simple. I think Pochettino's a master tactician, and I think while he does get results against teams like Manchester United and Manchester City, sometimes Chelsea struggle against weaker teams where those teams just focus on shutting them out, so Chelsea can't counter-attack effectively. But against Manchester City, I do expect Chelsea to counter-attack, to score, but I just think that City are able to control the game a little bit better in this one. Hi, thank you for making it to the end of this video. We really appreciate the watch time and the fact that you took some time out of your day to spend it with us talking about the sport that we all love. If you enjoyed the content, why not, drop a like down below or comment in the comment section. Maybe even consider subscribing to the channel. And I mean, while you are here right now, have a look at some of our old videos too. They should be appearing on the screen right now, along with that subscribe button. So you know exactly what to do. Thank you so much. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And have a great day out there. And we hope to see you again very, very soon. Thanks. Stay safe.